I'm Tarot Oracle, and we continue our tarot symbolism with 2 more videos to go. Second to the last video here was starting with death. So death represents quite a bit of things and has a ton of symbolism in it. Let's start with the horse. Now notice the horse has red eyes. The horse has red eyes, sort of symbolizing maybe a possession or an unworldliness or not a normal horse, right? Death rides a pale horse. So it's not a normal horse. Now the horse is also, left foot is trampling a crown, meaning sort of the loss of the power, or a loss of everything that you have by the crown being trampled by the left foot. And the right foot is about to trample these people. So these people look like they're sort of dropping flowers. They're dropping roses, sort of just giving up on it at this point, just dropping that stuff. And it looks like the baby is about to get trampled, and it doesn't look good. And you have a dead person on the ground on the left as well. So it gives this, the whole thing is unworldly and highly unusual. So in addition to the horse, we have also the knight that's riding the death. And the knight is holding a flag. Now the knight is heavily armored and he's undead, so he's a skeleton. So death is already dead. Again, riding the pale horse with sort of maybe the horse is undead as well. The horse is not a skeleton, but he's heavily armored for that protection. The horse needs that protection. So the horse also represents strength, because riding horses gives you a huge advantage in combat, things like that. So a lot of things. So we have the trampled crown, the loss of power, and things like that. So there's a city in the background, you'll notice here, which represents the stability lost, because you'll see away from sort of the city and the towers and all that, we have this weird blue sea and this weird blue cliff, maybe a waterfall. Everything is really sort of dreary in the background. It looks like it's changed or it's morphed, but the sunrise in between the pillars represents that new beginning, which death represents. Now, we do have a white rose symbolized on the death's flag, meaning, again, maybe it's not all bad. Maybe everything is not going to be just terrible. And the white rose represents that possibility that maybe we're moving into a new direction, maybe we're moving into a new place, etc., etc. So you also see crosses, if you look close, in the background. So we have crosses, so there's people that are buried, and we have people already buried and people about to be buried and things like this in the background. So you have different trees back there, etc. So obviously there is looks like a priest or somebody, a religious figure, praying. So sort of praying for peace into the afterlife, or praying for a better time, or praying for death to stop. We don't know what he's praying for, but he is praying. So a lot of different symbolism in here, a lot of different things going on with the death card, but definitely some interesting things to look for, some things maybe you haven't noticed before, like the lady on the bottom right dropping the roses. Maybe you haven't noticed the red eyes on the horse, but in either case, so much symbolism here to work off of when you actually use this card, and that is death. And the next card is Temperance. Now, Temperance represents a bunch of different things, mainly sort of the life flow or the flowing water. Now, you'll obviously see the large predominant angel wings, which means a relative degree of protection or relative degree of divineness. So we have sort of that divine spirit, or that divine otherworldly or above worldly types of things. We also have hope and happiness represented by the wings as well. So you'll notice on here it's red. Red sort of represents the transformation, or red represents that fire element within here. So not only do you have an exchanging of waters, or an exchanging of things, or a constant movement of waters, but you have that fiery element as well. So now you do have this sort of the sun symbol on her head, as well as the bright lights and shininess coming out of it, meaning represents the all-knowing, or the connection with the divine, or connection with above, or enlightenment. So she is enlightened. And that is the symbol for the sun, by the way, in astrology, which again sort of represents, we have the sun a little more prominent over here, but over here we have the sun symbol there. So again, that represents the sun, or that enlightenment given by the sun, the enlightenment given by the new day, things like this. So here we have the two goblets sort of representing tradition. So we'll have, goblets at feasts and things like this that represent the sort of the holding place for wine and liquid and wine, just life-giving liquids as well. So she does as well have in the back the hills and the mountains, as well as a road to that, in sort of representing a bit of challenge. So the mountains have represented challenge before, but she has a pathway to the challenge. She's a pathway through it. So sort of a pathway through the mountains, or a pathway through the challenges. So it's not all 100% hard, difficult challenge. She has that pathway that's going to guide her to the mountains, and maybe around the mountains or through the mountains or something like that. So we have sort of the hills, mountains, in a pathway, which is going to be there. So then we have the lilies, showing the love relationships, or love or purity that's within this mixture. And again, we have the river as well. So the river usually would represent an obstacle, maybe, or we have obstacles for the rivers down here, but she sort of has 1 foot in the water and 1 foot out of the water, meaning, again, the card is all about balance, right? A balance of out of the water and a balance of in the water. So you get that fine balance, and a balance of liquids between the cups, or that mixture of things between the cups as well. So then we have the sun element again, and then we have this triangle. Triangle represents the stability within that, and with the moving waters represents the sort of the interchange of different elements, or the cleansing that you have between. So when you pour a liquid back and forth, you sort of cleanse it, or you remove some of the impurities from the liquid and things like that. So we have a lot of different symbolism in Temperance. Really beautiful card, and a great one to use for the symbolism. And the next card is everyone's favorite, the Devil. So he is sitting on sort of an altar or a throne, and that represents the stability. But one interesting thing about this, though, is that it's not exactly too stable. Look how he's sort of just barely balancing on that particular altar, that particular place. So it's not like a huge throne that you see with some of the other cards, but I think it's very interesting that you do have that symbolism within there, that he's not exactly too stable. He's not exactly perfectly stable and things like this. So now we have the chains, which are restricting the two characters, possibly from the lovers. That's represented in other cards, but possibly restricting the two characters and the lovers. But notice the chain is not very tight around their neck. It's clearly loose enough so that they can pull it off and just remove it entirely. So it's almost like a voluntary chaining, or a voluntary restriction that we have within that. So the Devil is sort of sitting there and pretty happy and all this other stuff, and he has that sort of satiety to him, that he is happy and that he's where he wants to be, but it also represents greed and materialism and all this other things that come with the material world that the Devil is indeed connected to. Now we do have an inverted 5-point star as well, which is the opposite of its original meaning, or the pentagram. So it's sort of an upside down pentagram, talking about that maybe it's not very good anymore. Maybe it's been inverted, and we have the harmony represented by the pentagram is now lost. So now we also have fire and flame all over the place, which again represents a burning of old things and a renewal of other things. So sort of out with the old and in with the new. So the devil does have horns as well, which represents the, when you have horns on a goat, a lot of the animals in the animal kingdom, well, the bigger the horns, the more intimidating they are. It represents intimidation or the ability to have more power than your neighbor. So one of those things to where you have to be careful with any large animal with these huge horns. It just gives you fear. You really don't want to approach that animal and make them mad or anything. So one of those things where the larger the horns, the more intimidating they are and the more dangerous possible the animals are, because you could get impaled with it and die. So definitely one of the things that's not very good to have. So you'll notice the fire is burning up the end of his weapon or the thing that he's holding there. So again, that represents the the renewal to where things are getting burned up, and we have a possibility to replace it or get rid of the old and get into the new. So you'll also notice he has these small slot type wings, which could indicate that a mobility. So he's not very still, he's not going to be stagnant. He also has a big frown on his face, etc. So a lot of symbolism within the devil card, and an interesting one always to find in a reading. And the next card is the Tower. So we have a lot of clouds within here, which represents the movement from one place to the next. The clouds give that movement of rain to sunshine, or from sunshine to rain, or from different seasons. So the clouds moving around indicate movement or a constant motion or a constant a transition between one and the other, or bad weather, good weather, bad weather, etc. Cloudy versus sunny, etc. Clouds always indicate that something is moving around and something is about to change. So now we have the crown falling off of the tower. So again, the crown is that nobility or that power that you have with the position, right? If you're a position of a king or a queen or something like that, you have a degree of power. And with the crown falling off, you have a loss of that power or a changing of the guard, or things like that. So we have people falling, indicates a a loss of control or things going poorly. We have the single bolt of lightning in an arrow, where we have the lightning looks kind of like a cloud over here, causing a fire, indicating the loss of control. So we have just a lot of things where we're losing control within this card. And that's important because you need to know that there's a lot of things you can't control in life. Like we have the rain coming as well. So it's just everything bad. Everything bad is coming in the tower, indicate a major disruption in whatever you do, a major disruption in your life, a major disruption in how things go. And it's important to know that things will never be the same. The tower is literally burning down. It's not a very good thing to happen, and obviously it's all going to be poor and bad. So now it's on top of a mountain, which indicates that we really were in a higher place. We had a degree of control. We had a degree of a higher place where we were. So everything was going pretty well when we hit the tower. We had this nice tower. It was on top of a mountain. And again, getting up to the mountain to get into the tower would indicate a lot of obstacles or a lot of work to get to the tower. So again, we have these obstacles to climb. So if you were to replace the tower or repair the tower, you would have to climb that mountain with the new components or the new replacement parts for the tower. So this is a lot of work. This is not something easy to where you're going to be able to just move on with your life after the tower is destroyed. There's going to be a lot of change involved, and because it's up on this mountain, you're looking at quite a bit of work to get it replaced, or to get replacement parts, to get replacement stones up there. Especially it's made out of heavy stone and whatnot, so it's going to be quite difficult to replace. So that is the tower. Any major disruption, any major things as well. A lot of people have speculated that these are the two characters again from the Lovers. So I don't know, but we can show that they're definitely falling. It's definitely not good, and they're heading for a major disruption within their life. So that is the Tower. And lastly, we have the Star. So lovely card, lots of symbols within here. Let's first look at the bird. The bird represents the ability to fly, to see things from a different perspective, to fly above, to not be based on the ground or not be restricted like most things that are on the ground, the ability to move faster, the ability to be better than average. We have mountains in the background as well. Mountains representing, again, the challenges, the ability to overcome those challenges. And lots of stars, which obviously represent the guidance or the supreme guidance, the ability to get help or get help from above or get some sort of a way. So the star traditionally would represent the guide of where you wanted to sail. So if you're on the sea, you would look to the stars to find out which direction you need to be sailing. So the stars would be guidance, and that sort of represents how it goes. Now we have the pictures and the water, the flowing of life, or the flowing of something small into the flowing of something more grand. So we start small and we go into a more grand type of view. So we get that guidance, and we get the guidance to go forward into a larger realm or go forward into something bigger. And then we have the little sprouts, as well as the tree represents the growth, the natural growth that we all have capabilities for. So in order to grow beyond or be better, we have that ability to grow and to transform ourselves into something small, into something that's much greater, which also, represents or is represented by the bird, so the bird coming off the tree, etc. So the water represents the cleaning that's required, and she's also about to step into the water, which is interesting, but she's not quite there yet. So you're about to take that first step into the larger pond or the larger pool or a place that's going to be bigger, a place that's going to be better. So you have that guidance and you're taking a step. So you're not just seeing the guidance and doing nothing about it. You're able to use that guidance for the betterment of yourself, for the betterment of your personality and things like this. And again, we have someone that's young, someone that's able to take those chances, that's able to use that guidance for the better. It's not someone that's very old like the hermit. It's a young person who's going to be able to learn from these new opportunities and these new chances, etc. So very interesting card and a fascinating card, and always with the Rider Waite, a beautiful one as well. So thank you for watching. Let's go to the Patreon credits. And as always, I'd like to thank my Patreon supporters who donate money to me to keep my quest going. My quest is simple. I want to teach you tarot, Lenormand, I want to teach you Kipper, I want to teach you everything that I possibly can, astrology obviously as well, and they help me by supporting me and helping pay for the software that I use and all the fancy effects you see and the microphone that I'm using, etc., etc. So my current Patreon supporters, thank you so much. They are Allie Cat, Annie Lemaster, Carolyn Borchard, Crystal McGinn, Gary Fink, Hot Chocolate, Janet Littler, Jessica Mante, KSW, La Ami, Peter, Richard Zeh, Scott Miller, Shintaro Kuga, SJP, and Tina Iovero. Thank you so much. You can find a Patreon link in the description if you're interested in helping me out as well. If not, that's fine too. I would just ask, please hit like and subscribe. It gets more traffic to the channel. It gets more exposure to all the fun things that I do on the channel. Thank you so much for watching.